Rise America.
Now, the education of children and adolescents, what they're taught, what they should learn and what they shouldn't learn, has been a hot political debate. Some states have banned critical race theory from the classrooms, while school districts and parents are calling for the banning of certain books from the curriculum. Now, many of these books are texts that openly talk about race, LGBTQ+ issues and inequality. Some educators are saying it's getting harder to talk openly about issues many students face, worried that they'll be punished. Well, one educator, known as the Black Tech Guy, is finding a way to disrupt deep-rooted systemic challenges and provide solutions in K-12 classrooms. Mondo Davison is the founder of Schoolz, a company merging tech, art and media to deliver culturally rich curriculum at scale. But with the growing backlash against culturally responsive educators, how are they navigating this new climate? Well, before we get to that, let's listen into the story of Schoolz and why Mondo Davison says the organisation is perched to become what's been missing from the classroom.
I remember my first day because it was the most shocking thing. And so they were like, the student that you're gonna work with, that you're supposed to focus on, is this kid named Sequadre. So I was like, cool, Sequadre, no problem. And so, he was just a kid. But I quickly realized that the dude was active, he needed the attention, but it wasn't for a lack of brilliance. He was just bored. Just super bored. He can do all the things that may disrupt everybody else, but if you ask him a question about the content, he's gonna tell you. He had it. He's a brilliant dude. And so I share that story because there's this awareness that I have now. Most of the black and brown kids in our schools have the same brilliance. School's just boring. We haven't framed it in a way that works for all students. And so I stepped in not knowing what I was doing, but I was coached by a bunch of dope educators. This is how you show up every day. They led by example, which means I had to lead. I'm like, oh, you show up every day, you're vested in kids, you stay after work, you do all the things to make sure that not only your kids, but everybody else was getting the support that they needed. And it really set.
Well, we are joined live with the founder of Schoolz himself, Mondo Davison, who joins us live from Minnesota. Mondo, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Can you tell us what made you set up the Schoolz venture and what made you have to think outside the box for it to be successful?
Yeah, so the origin story of Schoolz actually started way back when I was in the classroom as a student. And I remember going out for recess every single day. And when you come in, educators would say, hey, we got to bring back down the energy. So it's silent reading time. And every day I would come into the classroom and I would find a book and I would fake read, right? And I fake read probably my entire elementary, junior high experience. I knew how to read, but I just used to fake read because I felt like it wasn't relating to the things that I cared about. And fast forward to, going to college, moving back to Minnesota and working in the classroom, I saw students that looked like me fake reading the same way I did 20 years prior. And it just struck me. It was like, wow, nothing over the past 2 decades has really changed. Because students in the classroom are still disengaged. And so since nobody else didn't want to solve the problem or had the right solution, I figured, why not lean into the work?
So has it been a case, as an educator, sometimes you must feel that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because you're trying to have an open discussion about subjects, but you're being told you can't say this, you can't do that. Cancel culture is growing, there's boycotts. It must be so difficult, one, to learn how to engage with students, but also what content and how to make the content relevant.
Yeah, so that's been one of probably the biggest challenges, right, is breaking into the classroom with certain content, because there's so much red tape, so much bureaucracy around what can be taught in the classroom. So what we decided to do was hyper focus on augmenting kind of curriculum that's already in the classroom. So like having these add-ons that say, hey, you agreed to teach this certain curriculum in the classroom. However, here's something to watch before it or to lean into in the middle, or here's some additional homework that really connects this curriculum to what's really happening in the real world. Because what we know as educators is students always ask, how is this relevant to my life right now? And so that's where we lean into extremely deep to try to figure out how do we consistently answer that question. So when students are in classroom, they're saying like, cool, I'm learning this thing, but I actually know how it's connected to my life and how it's impacting the broader society.
Now you have your own curriculum, I believe, the Delroy Ordinary Kid. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so Delroy, New Kids on the Block, is created by our co-founder, Michael Batson. He goes by Mike Daz. He is one of the most just creative talents to be able to just naturally tell authentic stories. And so Delroy is his kid who moves from the West Coast to Minnesota, and is trying to just get acclimated. And it's just this real life story, which is based a lot off of our co-founder, unlike the things that he had to deal with, leaning into Minnesota, which is extremely white-centered culture. And we build these questions around this experience so students can actually like really talk about the real issues, right? And being able to use animated characters like Delroy to facilitate those conversations and encourage kids to have conversation and dialogue about topics that typically may be taboo seems to be working, when we test it in the classroom.
You talk about the students talking about their issues and maybe some that are taboo. I mean, does the system stop that or almost sort of censor an open discussion? And is that a change that you want to see more of, to be allowed that open dialogue with students?
Yeah, so I think that one of our biggest value propositions is equipping educators with the right tools to be able to facilitate those conversations. And so I think historically, let's just say 20 years ago, education used to look like teachers know all the information and they have to educate the student. But with the, surgence of the internet and now, post-COVID world where so much content is being delivered through a digital tablet or computer, all the information is there, right? Students are having these conversations with or without educators, but I feel like educators too often are uncomfortable because they feel like they have to have the answers. But instead of having the answers, let's just build the right relationships and equip you with the right kind of language and information to have and engage with students in the classroom. So it feels like a more welcoming and culturally relevant environment.
And you mentioned technology. I was going to say, obviously, you've got social media, you've got so many different platforms that students have access to. And as you say, the information is there, which is obviously a very good tool. But can sometimes that work against when there is a lot of fake information or information that's presented in the wrong way available and accessed by students? Can that cause problems?
Yeah, so we have two core values for school. One is ease of use, so making sure that we're equipping teachers with the right tools so they can simply step into the classroom and use the things that we're creating. And the other is trust, making sure that we vet every single thing we put onto our school's platform to make sure that, one, it's vetted by other educators who are confident having those type of conversations in the classroom, and two, making sure that the information, the things that we are kind of pushing or motivating students to talk about is actually equitable. And so our responsibility, having a bunch of creatives on our team, meaning creative artists, but also a team of just amazing educators that have that progressive, seasoned kind of experience and know, like, this is the type of education that should be in our classrooms.
Very quickly before you go, I mean, your venture is based in the US. I mean, do you see similar issues in other parts of the globe? Would you have any advice for people like yourself that wants to make a difference in somewhere else around the world?
Yeah, I would imagine. So I'm not well versed enough to be in different institutions and different regions of the world, but I think at the end of the day, it's how do you connect to the student, right? And being able to connect to the student a lot of the times is just authentic or original storytelling. And so we all come from different walks of life and we care about different things. And so having enough content, enough curriculum that's relatable across different demographics is what's going to make students like find their purpose and their passion.
Well, Mondo, we'll have to leave it there, but it's been fascinating talking to you this evening here on Arise America. Mondo Davison, live from Minnesota.
Rise America.